Are you experiencing explosive growth? Are you growing faster than you expected this year? Are you growing fast enough that it's difficult to plan? It's just difficult to sit down and plan anything. It's just coming at you faster than you thought it would. This session, we're going to talk about speed planning, not just how to create growth and how to grow faster than you did last year, but rather when things really get cooking, they really get growing, and etc. How do you stop and plan in that time frame? Because what I'd like to do is help you know how to plan in, let's call it less than an hour, to come up with a plan that is better than no plan. Let me first of all explain what a plan is. A plan is simply a written statement of the group's assumptions about its direction, its organization, and its cash. Because basically you're assuming one thing about where you're headed. Are you sure your team is assuming the same thing? And when you get growing very fast, sometimes that gets skewed off a little bit. You're growing so fast and you're moving in so many directions, you start heading off in this direction, and 10 degrees different, your staff heads off, and all of a sudden you're quite a ways off the plan. But if you can have a way to write down what your plan is very quickly, so that your staff can read it, agree with it, or disagree with it, in the middle of explosive growth, that's what we're talking about here this morning, today. Frankly, most groups I've worked with over the years had one of two extremes. They had no plan at all. They just winging it every day. Or they've had a 4-inch thick plan that took them months to develop, kind of thing. But how do you get that plan when it's just coming at you faster than you can deal with? Steve Douglas, I was working with Steve, the president of Crew. I was working with him one day, and he said, well, Bob, what are the 3 things we could do in the next 90 days that make a 50% difference? I said, Steve, do you ask that question all the time? He said, man, that's one of the best questions I've ever heard since the 2 questions, BE, of course. But I said, that's a great question. Let me get it word for word. And he said, what are the 3 things we could do in the next 90 days that make a 50% difference? I said, 50% difference in what, Steve? He said, well, it doesn't matter. 50% difference this year, this month, this quarter, this year, in 10 years. It doesn't matter, but you're trying to get to the boulders. Matter of fact, he drew a diagram that he said, I like to take a quick 50 and then another quick 50 and another quick 50% difference and leave the rest to someone else. I thought that was a pretty good perspective of leadership, is taking that first quick 50. Well, what I'd like to show you today is an answer to the question, what are the 3 things we could plan in the next 60 minutes that would make a 50% difference in how focused we feel as a team? So if you could just take 60 minutes with your team to get a better plan than they've got in the middle of explosive growth, maybe at breakfast, what would that be? And so basically I ask for quick focus in the middle of explosive growth with nearly 40 years experience working with 500 different companies. What would I tell you to look at? And one of the things that I've seen over the years, and this is just a rough number, but I've had a lot of presidents agree with me on this, that 85% of leadership is 3 things: clear direction, the right team or organization, and enough cash or money. 85% of leadership in explosive growth, don't ever forget this concept right here. 85% of your leadership is having clear direction, the right team, and enough money. Don't ever forget that one. So what I'd like to do is help you develop basically 3 concepts that, if you will remember these 3 in terms of, one is direction, one is organization, one is cash, It will let you in about 60 minutes, no matter what size team you've got. It's scalable. If you're president of your country, if you're president of a large company, if you're president of a small company, large or small church, no matter what you're in charge of, a department or division, in about 60 minutes, you can focus your team in the middle of explosive growth. So let's go with it. One of the first things you want to do in terms of direction is draw a chart, something like this. And it's basically 5 squares, 1, 2, 3, by 5 squares, 1, 2, 3. It's basically like that. Let's see, that one. Did I get that wrong? No. Okay, single word focus is here. And then 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and 1 year. In other words, to sort out clear direction for your department or division or yourself, ask yourself this question. In the next 30 days, if I could put into a single word what my focus is for the next 30 days, what is it? When you get that single word there for 30 days, it helps you an enormous amount, because if you'll get the same exact word that your team is getting, it may be a project name like building complete, or building. If you're you need to complete your building in the next 30 days or something like that. Just building. And you and the team are working on the exact same word, it provides you a tremendous amount of focus in an explosive situation. And then say in the next 30 days, if we could only get 3 things done, what would we get done? That are measurable. You want to make sure they're measurable. It could be a goal to reach, or something to add. It could be a problem to solve or fix within the existing system, or an opportunity to grab that has just come up lately. But what are the 3 things that you'd want to get done in the next 30 days? Do the same thing for 60 days, it may be a different word. In 90 days, the same thing, maybe a different word, 1, 2, 3. And then to say, if we could only do 3 things in the next year that are measurable, what 3 things would we do? And you basically list them like that. And when you get those 12 things defined in measurable terms, you're going to have a shockingly clear sense of direction. Now, here's a couple of warnings. You want to see these as in pencil or computer, not in indelible ink. In other words, tomorrow something may come up that would change one of these. That's okay. An old Chinese proverb says, "He who would know the future 3 days in advance, his family would be wealthy for generations." Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. The Lord may return, I hope He does. It's like we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So this is, as of today, the best that I can see at the moment. These are our priorities for the next year. And just by defining those and helping each one of your team members define them, or define them for each of your team members, it gives a very clear sense of direction. Confidence is also a byproduct of predictability. If life is very predictable, you have lots of confidence. If it isn't predictable, your confidence falters. It wobbles. So what this does is give a sense of team predictability. Here is where our team is going. We're going to have confidence in getting there. It helps you persevere in the middle of this when you say, I think I can get through this, because when I get through this, then we're here. If I can get through these 2 things, we can be here. And if we can get here by the end of the year, man, that's going to be great. And you can begin to see the potential of what it'd be like if we could accomplish these 3 things this year. I would also suggest to you that this is not only personal. In other words, you could do this for your life personally. Every single person that ever watches this video could focus your life very quickly, the direction of your life, using this chart right here. Every single person. I don't care how high you are, how low you are, how discouraged you are, how frustrated you are. Focus this, it'll focus your thinking very quickly. It can also work for your team. If our team, as a team, could get just these 3 things done, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and this year, where would it be? It gives you a sense of team direction as well. Now the second thing is organization. How do you put together an organization quickly in the middle of a blizzard? How do you do that? Peter Drucker said the role of the organization is to maximize the strength of the individual and make their weakness irrelevant. I agree with that 100%. So part of what you're doing is asking yourself, what is the single greatest strength of every person that reports to me? Every person, what's my single greatest strength? What is my team leader's greatest strength, the person to whom I report? And make sure you're trying to maximize every single person on your entire team. Then you want to make sure that you have an all-green team. That's one of the most fundamental things you can think of in the middle of explosive growth. And what you do is you list your team leader, yourself, and the people who report to you, and give each one of them a 1 to 10 rating, where 10 is it's the right person in the right place for longer term. 1 is they should have been fired a long time ago, don't know how to get rid of them. Give everyone a 1 to 10 rating. You know what? I'm not sure I remember when a senior executive took longer than 30 seconds to give everyone on your team a 1 to 10 rating. But in the middle of explosive growth, you can't have too many reds on your team and still have it work. A red is 1 to 5, someone you rate 1 to 5. 6, 7 is someone you rate is a yellow, and a green is 8, 9, 10. You can't go to the Super Bowl with a red on your team. It just doesn't happen. If you get everyone at Super Bowl potential, except the quarterback, or except the end, or except you can't go to the Super Bowl, it won't work. So in the middle of this explosive growth, you want to find out, are there any reds that are just dropping the ball? And is there any way to replace that person, to move very quickly toward an all-green team? By the way, a quote from Pat Riley that I really like. He said, Pat Riley was the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers at one point. He said, dress 11, play 8, trust 3. You hear that? Dress 11, play 8, trust 3. On your team of 7, 9 people, they may all be dressed, meaning they're all playing. But which ones do you play the most? Which ones do you use the most in this explosive growth situation? Which ones do you work with the most? And then which ones do you trust the most? In other words, who are the 3 people on your staff that say, all right, in this explosive growth situation, if I only had to count on 3 people, what 3 people would I count on the most in explosive growth? And really lean on them. And the next area is cash. You need to see that in a nonprofit organization, by the way, you still need income, expense, you have expense, and you have net. Dr. Ted Engstrom, who was the president of Youth for Christ at one point, he was the executive vice president of World Vision. He was basically one of the key driving forces to move it from $400,000 in debt to $350 million a year budget. He basically said every ministry is in fact in business, and every business should be in ministry. But he said, if you decide, oh, we're a ministry, we don't have to pay the bills, see how long you're in business. Because you'll go out of business, you'll go bankrupt. So he said, basically, you have to figure out not only what ministry we're in, keep the ministry focused, the direction clear, but you have to keep the financial dimension working properly. So in explosive growth, what do you look at? You look at how much income do we have, or will this new project produce? What's our expense going out, and what is our net? It's like all the time, really. But you basically have to have a basic budget. Now, from my perspective, in an explosive growth time frame, you don't necessarily need a detailed budget, but you need to know ballpark, how much is this going to cost, how much is it going to bring in, what's the net. You really need to keep track of the money, or have someone who is. You need to keep a budget in place, really. I've seen a lot of leaders in explosive growth begin to ignore the money factor. Well, we've got to get it done by Friday. I don't care how much it costs, get it done. Well, that's a dangerous position to get yourself in, because you may end up bankrupt, or just really in a financial jam. So you want yourself or someone who understands money to basically begin to put together a real basic budget, income, expense, net. And then you want to ask yourself this one profound question. If this were my organization, would I put my personal money here? That's a fog cutter of the first order. If you wouldn't put your money here, why would you put someone else's? Why would you put a donor's money here? No. If you wouldn't put your own personal money here, don't do it. Don't do it. By the way, a lot of times people ask, how much money should we spend for a camera? How much money should we spend for a television? How much more money should we spend for a chair? How much, that kind of thing. I'd like to give you one concept, and that is a concept of tools. And with the finance, in terms of how you spend and where you spend, you want to have a very clear understanding of the role that tools play. If you've got a tool that you need in your work, trying to accomplish anything without the proper tool is like trying to drive a nail into a hardwood floor or board with your fist. It doesn't work. It's like trying to drive a nail into a board with your fist. Doesn't work. And trying to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish without the proper tools can often be very, very, very frustrating. So a part of what you're investing your cash in is absolutely making sure that, if at all possible, you've got the right tools to work with. Now, whenever you're in a explosive growth situation, coming back to the beginning, you want to move toward where you're just dealing with priorities. The priorities you want to deal with, 80% of what you're dealing with is clear direction, your top boulders that you're trying to get done, getting the right team members, and getting the right team members off the team as soon as you possibly can, and cash with a basic budget and the right tools, but having someone who is watching the tools. Direction, organization, cash. Now with this 3 items, you've got what it takes 85% of leadership is clear direction, the right team, and enough money. Remember, this is not only a concept, direction, organization, cash, speed planning, for you, but it's for anyone you teach to lead. Teach them how to deal with explosive growth, not just day-to-day operation. And you can use it 24 hours a day, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, president of your nation or a small church. You can use it to focus in less than an hour our direction, our organization, and our cash. And you've got it available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for the rest of your life.